Hello. So today we're going to talk about Schlossberg's theory of adults in transition. She created this, her name's Nancy Schlossberg. She created this in response to Donald Super's theory. And she liked she liked Super's theory, um, but she didn't think it addressed everybody. And she knew that there were a lot of adults who don't follow the typical career paths or patterns. They don't fit in a specific mold. I think her theory speaks quite a bit to our modern age. Um, there are many uh, career transitions and changes, and a lot of less, a lot less certainty in today's world as far as careers than there used to be. I think people also look for fulfillment more today than they used to. And I think that results in some changes and new decisions. Many times she would say that people recrystallize or re-explore options. And many times this is later than is expected. Many people will work many years in one position. And just think about all of the different reasons why people choose a certain time period in their life to make a change in career. Of course, some transitions are a result of being laid off or losing one's job or a change in that position, change in the company. Maybe they don't want to move to a different area. Maybe they want to move to a different area. It could be that somebody was taking care of a family, children, and they've reached a point where they're able to explore a new career. Maybe they've retired from one career and want to start a different one. Maybe they're financially secure, or maybe they're experiencing instability and insecurity. And I could go on. There are a lot of reasons for this. I'm hoping that one of the primary reasons is that people want to find a new position that not only provides security and meets their individual family needs. However, I hope they also are seeking something that is meaningful and fulfilling as well. So Schlossberg focused on these adults that are in transition. And I think this is really a good theory for our current time in career counseling. So many people are in transition. And she also focused on how they work through this transition process, how we can help them to work through this. So her theory is divided into three primary parts. Number one, approaching transitions. Number two, taking stock of coping resources, and that's known as the 4 S's. And number three, strengthening resources. So let's look at each one of these, and they all have subcategories as well. So number one, approaching transitions. She believes that transitions are universal experiences. We all go through some form of transition. Everyone experiences a variety of them throughout our lives. However, she thinks that these various transitions can fit into three categories or subcategories. First type is an anticipated transition. So it's a period of transition, but it's one that the individual expects. It's a more normative transition one would expect throughout life. Usually occurs during the same time period of a person's life. This could be anything from marriage to birth of a child to a first job to a high school graduation or other educational graduation, all the way through a certain promotion or retirement. So these are often anticipated, hoped for, and expected. Now, once again, these examples don't fit everybody. They're just examples. Not everybody wants to get married. Not everybody has children. People get different types of education. Some people can afford to retire earlier or later than others. So these are all just general examples, but you know, many transitions might be anticipated. More difficult transitions are the unanticipated transitions. Unexpected transitions, they include typically transitions at a time in one's life where they would be unexpected. It's not necessarily negative, but it certainly interrupts a career path or development in general. It may be a change of course. It may be a positive, unanticipated transition or a negative transition. Many may seem to be negative at first. However, they may lead to new opportunities later. These will likely be anxiety producing and distressing, and yet they may be positive in the end. The Chinese symbol for crisis means both crisis and opportunity. And the last kind, the third transition, is a non-event transition. Occurs when a transition does not occur at a time when a person anticipates it happening. So an engagement does not lead to marriage. An individual is not promoted when they anticipate it. Couple wanting to have children, but they are unable to. Retirement is hoped for, but it is not financially feasible. So there's lots of things that people hope to happen, and yet they do not. And that can cause disappointment and anxiety as well. So her transition process, she argues that these 3 steps comprise a transition. So if we're talking about any transitional process, here's her 3 steps. Moving in, the initial phase of a transition where one discovers the new roles and expectations that the transition entails. What is expected of me? It's not what I expect, but what is my role? What is expected of me in this new role? What's my reaction to this role? Can I accomplish what is expected? The second stage in the transition process is called moving through. This is working inside that new environment after an individual's become a little more accustomed to it. So, you're getting the hang, what the expectations are, you're getting to know people, you understand the expectations, and you're kind of moving into and through that role. The third step in the transition process, moving out. When the person starts to seek his or her next transition. So whether a transition was expected, unexpected, or a non-event, once somebody deals with that, then they usually move toward what they see as that next transition, or they seek a new transition. I'm pretty happy being a professor, and I'm hoping I don't have any transitions for a long time. I kind of enjoy where I am. However, years from now, I may seek retirement. Who knows? Uh, I certainly have life transitions, though. And I had transitions like promotions and trying to get those promotions, and uh, going to different universities and graduations, and working at different universities, and then all of the physical moving to different locations and different homes, and family and kids, and all of those things. They are my transitions as well. So all of these things affect our careers as well, and the decisions that we make. Number two, in the big picture, taking stock of coping resources. And remember, here she has the 4 S's. And I guess that's a good way to remember these 4 things. Helps adults to review. So taking stock of coping resources helps adults to review their current state in life and their ability to cope with the stresses of transitioning. So what do we look at? What do we review to assess our resources, our coping resources? Well, there's 4 S's. The first one is situation. We begin to examine our own environment, the timing, how much control we have over the situation, or how little control we have over it. What's my role in change? What is the change's role in my life, etc.? And this can be based on previous experience, or we could learn more about what the current experience entails. We can do some research, talk to people, things like that. The second one, self, the second S, self. Basic demographics, personal characteristics, helps one to understand who he or she is, where we come from, helps us to facilitate self-awareness, all of the things that go into who I am. Now, this is a lot more entailed than simply those couple sentences. There's a lot that goes into demographics and personal characteristics. As counselors, I'm sure you're aware of that. Okay, the third S, supports. So they can come in different forms. Family supports, friends, loved ones, coworkers, supervisors, professional organizations, community support. They can be both positive, but they could also be a hindrance to the transition process, such as a spouse or significant other who is against a person returning to school, or whatever decision there might be at that time. moving to a different location. However, most of these tend to be supportive. D, 4, fourth S, strategies for coping. So there are 3 types of coping responses: addressing the source of the stress, addressing the problem from a cognitive standpoint, and changing the meaning of the situation, and accommodating the stress of a problem by finding a meaningful outlet for it. So, coping strategies. What is the source of the stress? Identifying the source of the stress realistically. Um, Looking at the problem, once we decide on exactly what it is from a cognitive standpoint, and changing the meaning of that, reframing it cognitively. We might have looked at it a bit irrationally, but we want to look at it realistically. We don't want to minimize or maximize the problem. It's kind of like using a little CBT, REBT here. And finally, accommodating the stress of a problem by finding a meaningful outlet for it. That could take all different forms, that outlet for stress. It could be by solving the issue or changing the source of the stress, or could be using other coping mechanisms outside the stressful situation to reduce our stress until the stressful situation changes. All right, and the third major component, strengthening resources. The part of the transition where counseling takes place. I I see this a little differently. I think counselors can help in each one of the areas that I've discussed already. She focuses on this, but I think we can help throughout the entire process. Um, but she sees the person is prepared for how to approach the transitions. We help consider the 4 S's, and I think we can. So, strengthening resources, I believe, is a little broader, uh, and it includes everything that I've just discussed in a career counseling session. Okay, that is Shlossberg. And if you have any questions, you can ask me in class or email me.